In this video, we're going to be covering a very important concept in Python, especially as Python is used in Ignition, and that is the ability to define your own functions. There's a number of places inside of the Ignition API where you'll be asked to provide a function to another function, or to complete a function that has been defined for you by the system. So defining functions is a very important ability. So thus far we've just been entering code inside of this buffer and hitting run. But one of the other things that we can do in here or in any Python script is define a function, and that is done using the def keyword. So we can just type in def and then a name, and these names follow the same rules as variable names, so they have to start with a letter and then consist of letters, numbers, and underscores. I believe they can also start with an underscore. But so we'll call this one myfunc, and then you do an open parentheses, and then you list your arguments. So let's just say I'm going to take one argument called foo, and then you do a colon and open a block, and that's it. Now you're defining the code of the function itself. So this function is going to print you called me, and then it's going to print out whatever you give this thing. Alright, so then by decreasing our indentation, we exit out of the defining of the function, and then we can use this function. So we can just say myfunc or we can call it with let's say a number. And now if we execute this whole thing, what's going to happen is first it just defines the function, which just creates a variable in this buffer scope called myfunc that is a function, and then we call that function with two different arguments. So the first time we call it with a string. So this is going to run this code where foo is equal to the string yes, and then it's going to run it again where foo is equal to the number 5. So you can see how that works. Now, one of the most important concepts about functions in Python is that functions are just objects. That means you can assign them to variables. You can pass them as arguments to other functions. So let's see what that might look like. Let's define a function called alter. And it's going to take a list and a function. And it's going to loop through the list, and it's just going to print out the item in the list as altered by the function. So it's going to be func item. Okay, so there's a pretty simple little function that takes a list and prints out each item in the list, but it doesn't just print out the item directly. It actually is printing out whatever this function returns. But what is this function? Who knows? It's whatever we decide it to be. So let's make a few more functions. So we're going to do def double. All right. Which is simply going to return the value that it was given multiplied by 2. We're going to assume this value is an integer. And we'll have another function called neg, which is going to return the negative of the argument. Okay, so let's give ourselves a list here. So we're going to say our list is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. And now the interesting thing is that we can call alter and give it our list and pass in any of these alteration functions. So let's call alter our list double and see what we get. So you can see here that the alteration function has printed out the double of each value in the list. And we can type in neg here, and you can see that we're going to get the negative value of each item in the list. So the important concept to realize here is that when we do a def, it actually creates a variable in that namespace. So neg is just a variable just like our list is, and we can pass that variable as arguments to other functions, and then they can invoke those functions using an open parentheses operator.